Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot into a world of dust discipline and deeply questionable dental hygiene. Imagine the sun cracking over a horizon of sand-colored rooftops. You're lying on a woven mat in a tiny courtyard. Birds you can't name chirp in a language you don't understand. Somewhere nearby, a rooster is screaming like it's got something personal against you. Welcome to the medieval Islamic world, where plumbing is a myth prayer schedules run your life, and no one cares if you've had coffee yet. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stir under a thin cotton blanket, mouth, dry limbs stiff. The air smells like old smoke sweat and the ghost of last night's lentils. Someone's already moving around the scrape of sandals on stone, the clink of clay pots, the creak of a wooden door. You've slept in your clothes because that's what everyone does, and they're wrinkled in all the wrong places. Your back is sore because, well, beds are for caliphs and daydreams. Your host, because obviously you don't own property here, walks past and mumbles something in Arabic. You smile, nod, and pretend it's fine that you understood none of it. He's already getting started on his morning routine. And spoiler, it does not involve espresso or scrolling through his phone. You reach for your shoes, then realize you took them off last night, and now they're full of sand. Of course. So you slip them on anyway, one grainy step at a time. The ground is cold, not refreshing cold, but you're going to remember this moment all day, cold. You shuffle toward a chipped water jug and splash your face with a liquid that feels more like tepid soup than refreshment. Welcome to morning ablutions medieval style. This isn't just hygiene, it's ritual purity, a sacred reset. You're expected to wash your hands, face, mouth, nose, arms, and feet before you even think about praying. And, by the way, the water. It might have come from a well, or maybe a rain barrel with a frog in it. Historians still argue whether public fountains in smaller towns were used more for washing or for watering donkeys. Either way, you're now very clean or very infected, and that rooster's still yelling. The sky's gone from dark purple to pale gold. Somewhere nearby, the first call to prayer echoes through narrow alleys. It's melodic, beautiful. And you're standing there with damp sleeves and a very urgent need for caffeine that no one around you understands. But prayers first. You trail behind your host as he makes his way toward a small local mosque. It's just a modest structure, wooden beams a low dome, and rugs that have seen too many feet. Shoes come off at the door. You're already messing this up because you forget which direction to place them. Right now, some stern uncle of a man is judging you silently with his eyebrows. You step inside and awkwardly stand at the back. You try to blend in, which is hard when you look like you've just wandered off a reality show set. Everyone's focused, bowed, and murmuring verses. You try not to sneeze. Here's your first real challenge direction. Everyone's facing Qibla toward Mecca. But that's only obvious if you know where Mecca is. You unfortunately are still thinking in Google Maps. Back in the 10th century, scholars used astrolabe's complex geometry and a lot of arguing to figure out which way to pray. Historians still debate how accurate these calculations really were in rural regions. One misaligned rug and boom, you're praying toward Sicily. The prayer ends. You exhale, pretending you were part of it all along. Your knees pop as you straighten up. Your stomach grumbles like a camel with IBS, and you follow the crowd back out into the sunlight. It's barely dawn, but you already feel like you've run a marathon in linen pajamas. Time to eat. Technically, yes, but don't expect pancakes. Your host's wife, or maybe sister or cousin. Relationships here are a delicate dance. Hands you a rough wooden bowl. Inside curds, as in fermented goat milk. Next to it, 2 hunks of bread so dense they could double as doorstops. And there's a suspiciously greenish olive. You chew in slow motion while chickens peck the ground like they own the place. A cat slinks by, clearly judging your technique. No spoons, no napkins. You wipe your hands on your robe, trying to look natural. The bread's dry. The curd is sour, and you're 93% sure that Olive had a bug on it. Still, you nod in appreciation. Because manners are survival here. Your host smiles and mutters something that probably means, "Eat up, we have a long day ahead." You smile back, hoping it doesn't mean I've cursed the olive. Just then, a small boy walks by with a cage full of pigeons. You lock eyes with one of the birds. You envy its life. As you finish your medieval breakfast and stare at your sandy toes, you realize something today hasn't even started yet. You've got a full day of navigating strict customs, weird foods, random street animals, and a language barrier so tall it might as well be a castle wall. And all while trying not to offend anyone who could either curse you or politely kill you with hospitality. Still, the sunlight's golden. The sounds of the city are waking up a flute, a donkey, braying some very animated bartering already happening. You take a deep breath. It smells like history. And like maybe you should have skipped that olive. So you've survived your first medieval sunrise. Barely. Your breath smells like goat dairy. Your robes sticking in places robes should never stick. And you've officially begun questioning all your life choices. But hey, you're still upright, which is more than most time travel tourists can say by hour 2. Now comes the part where you attempt morning hygiene, though that term is used very loosely here. Someone hands you a slender twig. Not a toothbrush, a literal twig. This, they gesture enthusiastically, is a miswak, a natural teeth-cleaning stick from the Salvadora persica tree. It's kind of like brushing your teeth with a brittle cocktail garnish. You chew one end until it frays like a tiny mop, then run it across your teeth while trying not to gag. Fun fact, the miswak actually works. Modern dentists have confirmed it's got antimicrobial properties and can even fight plaque. But does it taste minty fresh? Absolutely not. It tastes like spicy bark that someone dipped in old tea. You try to act grateful, all while doing a mental inventory of how many gum splinters you've just collected. And here's the twist people are watching. Dental hygiene here is semi-public, a sign of piety discipline, and apparently low personal boundaries. You glance toward a nearby ceramic bowl, where someone's pouring what looks like yogurt, but surprise, it's goat milk again. This is breakfast drink number 2. It's warm, it's slightly chunky, and it smells faintly of wet animal. You give it a respectful sip, trying not to imagine the goat it came from making direct eye contact with you this morning. Your host laughs softly and offers you a dried fig. You chew it slowly, eyes watering from the aftertaste of twig and sour milk. You've never missed toothpaste more in your life. Around you, the world's warming up. Literally. The sun doesn't rise here, it attacks. The courtyard's gone from quaintly crisp to air fryer set on sandstorm. You wipe sweat from your brow with your sleeve, which only smears more sweat into it. Delightful. Time to head out. But before that, a moment of introspection. Your current appearance is, let's be honest, not great. Your robe's hanging crooked. Your miswalk breath isn't doing you any favors, and there's a tiny smear of fig stuck to your chin. No mirror, no deodorant, no floss, no escape. But this world has its own grooming codes. You spot a mirror shard nailed to the wall near the doorway. You lean in. And there, you are slightly wild-eyed, tragically unmoisturized, and questioning your career as a pretend historical explorer. There's a guy nearby rubbing rose oil into his beard. You watch enviously as the scent drifts toward you, vaguely floral, with a hint of something spicy, maybe cinnamon. That stuff's expensive even back then. Historians still argue whether rose oil was used more for personal grooming or religious rituals, but either way, you want some. Unfortunately, you smell like goat. Someone offers you a pinch of crushed leaves to rub into your armpits. You don't ask questions. You just do it. The leaves are vaguely minty and very crumbly. You're 67% sure they were meant for tea. But who's going to tell? Next comes turban tying. You've never wrapped anything around your head except a towel at a spa. But here it's a delicate art. The cloth is long, thin, and determined to slide off your scalp with every movement. A helpful stranger steps in, fingers deft expression, amused. It takes 3 tries and a quiet sigh before your turban stops looking like a poorly folded bedsheet. Then sandals. They're leather. Sort of. More like strips of bark held together by ancient willpower. Your toes peek through the front like they're trying to escape. But at least they're not barefoot, because the streets outside, those are their own sensory adventure. You step out into the alley. The sunlight hits your eyeballs like a truth bomb. You squint through the haze. Dust swirls in lazy loops. A cat darts across your path with a lizard in its mouth. And someone nearby is already arguing over lentil prices full volume before 9 a.m. You've got places to go. Except you don't know where you go in this society. You, a foreigner with no trade skills, no Arabic, and no local sponsor, are essentially an ambulatory liability. You walk slowly, nodding at people who don't nod back. You try to look like you belong. It doesn't work. A child points. A woman in a veil hurries past you, eyes downcast. A man spits casually into the dust and mutters something with a jami in it that's the word for foreigner. Not the good kind. The "you're not from around here and we're not impressed" kind. You try to smile and keep moving. Someone offers you a fig. You decline. Once was enough. You spot a man squatting next to a brazier, boiling something that smells faintly like burnt cumin and regret. He's making tea. You gesture politely, and he gestures back. You sit. The cup is tiny and chipped. The tea is black, smoky, and finally hot. You sip carefully and realize it's got cardamom. It's actually good. Your first real win of the day. You smile. He smiles back, then charges you 4 copper coins. You have no coins. You awkwardly pat your robe, say something that sounds like, sorry in English, and mime the international sign for I'm a lost idiot. The man frowns, then laughs, then waves you away. You thank him profusely and backpedal into a donkey. The donkey is not amused. Welcome to the delicate dance of medieval manners. Greet everyone politely. Don't touch anyone or anything sacred. and absolutely never forget that donkeys have right of way. You limp back toward your host's house, toe-stubbed turban slipping, and your mouth somehow still tasting like twigs. You think maybe you're getting the hang of things. Then you remember you've still got to get dressed properly before heading to the market, because what you're wearing now, this is just your morning robe. Your feet shuffle back over the dusty threshold, and you're hit by the reality that your morning robe loose, crumpled, slightly damp in all the wrong places is not suitable for stepping into public life. Apparently, you need to get dressed again. But don't get excited. This isn't a glow-up montage. This is medieval layering scratchy fabrics and modesty rules so complex you need a flowchart. Someone leads you to a low wooden chest that creaks ominously when opened. Inside are folded garments that smell like smoke and cloves. Your host gestures toward a fresh robe, wider and heavier than your morning one with embroidery around the cuffs that probably meant something social status family profession. Or possibly just this is the least stained one. You reach for it cautiously. Underneath the robe is a belt, or rather a twisted sash that you're supposed to wrap around your waist and tie into something functional. You make 3 attempts. Each time it ends in a sagging mess. Your host gives up watching and steps in hands firm, tugging the cloth into a knot that somehow feels both secure and like a warning. Don't embarrass us out there. The fabric itches. It's wool, or maybe a coarse blend that's been through one too many sandstorms. There is no tag, no size chart, no machine wash cold label. You think longingly of your favorite hoodie, under all this linen trousers, drawstring baggy and incredibly breezy in ways you hadn't asked for. You feel like a walking flagpole. Also, no underwear. That wasn't standard unless you were wealthy or very ahead of your time. You do your best to adjust discreetly, which is hard when your host is watching with polite concern. Now for headwear again. You just took your turban off to change clothes, which was a mistake, because now you have to rewrap the whole thing. Your host offers help again, and this time it's faster. He even tucks in the tail with a little flourish like a baker tying off a loaf of bread. Here's the kicker. Your outfit is technically correct but socially ambiguous. You're dressed plainly enough not to draw elite suspicion but too clean to be working class. It's the outfit of someone who doesn't quite belong, which, to be fair, is entirely accurate. Outside the street, noise swells. It's almost mid-morning now. The market's waking up and so is the social surveillance grid. People are everywhere. Women veiled and flanked by children. Traders hauling goods in baskets the size of bathtubs. Beggars clinking bowls, and men shouting greetings that sound cheerful but might also be arguments. You pause near the threshold, hesitating. Your host gives you a once-over. Then he points to your feet. Right, sandals, on the wrong feet. You switch them and shuffle out again, now feeling like a wool-draped marshmallow. The robe clings in weird spots, puffs in others, and the sash keeps slipping like it's trying to escape your waistline. You try to stand tall to look like someone with a purpose. The only thing you're radiating, however, is confused time traveler with chafing. Now for the real fun modesty codes. Everyone here is watching how you move, where your eyes land, and who you talk to. Looking at a stranger too long, especially someone of a different gender, can spark a cascade of social horror. So you adopt the gaze of a bored librarian, respectful, detached, and mostly aimed at the ground. Suddenly, a group of teenage boys darts past you, giggling and shoving. One of them mutters something and glances back at your robe. It could have been a compliment. It could have been nice dress. You'll never know. But it doesn't help your confidence. A woman walks by headscarf draped just so eyes peeking out from layers that somehow convey "don't mess with me" better than armor. You nod automatically. She doesn't look at you. She doesn't have to. You just committed a minor faux pas. Direct acknowledgement is frowned upon in public mixed settings unless you're kin, especially if you're dressed ambiguously like you just lost your job in both past and future centuries. Historians still argue whether these modesty rules were rooted more in religion culture or class distinctions. What's clear is that they were enforced sometimes by community pressure, sometimes by literal moral patrols. And now you're part of this unwritten choreography. You try to adjust your robe again, subtly. A breeze hits. Everything flaps. You grip your sash like it's a seatbelt. Suddenly, a call from across the street, someone selling robes ironically. Richly dyed flowing garments strung across a rope line. One crimson one sways, catching your eye. It's gorgeous. It also probably costs more than your host's entire kitchen setup. Colors matter. In some regions, particular shades were reserved for specific classes or professions. Saffron yellow, maybe a scholar. Black, often judges or religious clerics. White could be purity or just hot weather logic. You're currently wearing non-threatening beige, which screams, "Please don't make me explain myself." You inch toward a stall selling fabrics. A child eyes you curiously. You try a smile. He offers you a date from a sticky pile. You accept it cautiously. It's chewy, and not in a good way. You nod anyway. That's the thing about this world, even. Your smallest gestures are part of a massive, invisible web of social expectation. Your robe, your posture, whether you smile too much or not enough, whether you cover your hair correctly if you're presenting as female, or wear your belt too low if you're male, or just walk like someone who's not afraid of chickens. Because, let's be honest, there are chickens everywhere. One struts across your path now, giving you the side eye like it owns the block. You step back automatically and into a mud puddle. Your sandal makes a squelching sound that everyone hears. A nearby boy snorts with laughter. You keep walking, one squishy step at a time. You glance back at your host's house. It's still there behind the row of clay brick walls and straw rooftops. Comforting in a please, take me home and give me new socks kind of way. But you're dressed now. Sort of correctly. Somewhat socially acceptable. At least no one's yelling. And you've got a market to face next. Which, let's be clear, will not be boring. You thought getting dressed was hard. But that was just the opening act. Now you're heading into the full sensory onslaught of the medieval marketplace where personal space is a myth. Everything is either shouting or sizzling, and the smell is somewhere between Spice Bazaar and unwashed ambition. You step onto a wide-packed street lined with stalls and shaded by sun-bleached cloth canopies. Dust swirls around your ankles like clingy smoke. The noise hits you. First vendors, hawking figs, dates, olives, leather sandals, brass pots, honey spices, scarves, sheep. Someone is trying to sell a squirrel. You don't ask. A donkey brays, like it's just heard your internal monologue and then promptly relieves itself in front of a fruit stall. No one reacts. Except you, of course, because your sandal narrowly avoids disaster. Again, you edge your way through the crowd trying to look like you belong here, that you know your cumin from your camphor and your chickpeas from your goat droppings. Spoiler, you don't. A man shouts, holding up a hunk of glistening meat. It could be lamb. It could be camel. It could be several animals mixed together and passed off as the good stuff. You nod politely and back away. Then someone else thrusts a bowl toward you, dates soaked in something syrupy. You're handed one before you can protest. It's soft, sticky, and tastes like molasses got into a fistfight with vinegar. You chew while pretending not to panic. Markets like this are the epicenter of public life. They're not just about buying food, they're town squares, gossip mills, performance spaces, and low-key surveillance zones all rolled into one. That guy selling fish might also be a local informant. That elderly man playing a flute for coins, he probably knows more about your robe than you do. Historians still argue whether these marketplaces were more regulated or chaotic. Evidence points to both city officials known as muhtasib, often roamed the stalls enforcing moral and economic order like the world's first combination of food inspector and behavior cop. You don't see one today, but you suddenly feel very aware of how poorly tied your sash is. You reach a spice stall, and the colors are hypnotic piles of turmeric, cumin, cinnamon, saffron, all heaped in pyramids like edible sand art. The air here makes your nose twitch and your eyes water. It smells incredible and overwhelming. You sneeze. Loudly. 3 people flinch. The vendor eyes you. You mumble something that might be thank you or might be a confession. He offers you a pinch of something red and granular. You taste it on impulse. It's chilly, and your mouth is now a bonfire. You cough. You wheeze. You grab at your sash again like it holds answers. Someone laughs behind you and you turn to see a teenage boy mimicking your chilly reaction with impressive accuracy. His friends are in stitches. You give a weak wave and retreat, lips tingling. Every few feet you encounter new textures. Baskets of rough-skinned melons, jars filled with honeycomb suspended in golden syrup cloth. Bolts you're not supposed to touch, but of course you do. And of course someone glares. You stumble upon a perfumer's corner. Now here's something magical, glass vials shaped like teardrops filled with oils in shades of amber green and rose gold. The air here is heady frankincense, myrrh, rosewater, and musk. One bottle is uncorked and waved under your nose. You inhale and promptly sneeze again. You're batting 0 with your sinuses today. The perfumer shrugs and gestures to a flask of oud, a scent so rich and musky it feels like it should come with a warning label. You dip a finger in and dab it on your wrist. Instantly, you smell like a royal library that moonlights as a forest shrine. It's strong. It's beautiful. It's now permanently part of your skin. You nod in approval. The perfumer smiles and names a price. It's high. You realize you still have no money. You mime the international I am broke but full of admiration gesture, hand to chest. Beau slightly back away slowly. He lets you go with a bemused look. Probably thinks you're eccentric, or enchanted, or just foreign. He's right on all 3 counts. A street performer nearby is juggling knives. Real ones. Kids are gathered around him giggling every time he fakes a drop. You pause to watch momentarily entranced. His rhythm, his footwork, the way the blades flash in the sunlight. It's mesmerizing. Then he throws one too high. It arcs. People scatter. You duck instinctively. The knife lands in a melon cart. Close call. The crowd cheers. You breathe again. You're starting to understand why people think this place is alive. The market's not just where you buy things, it's where you exist publicly, communally, audibly. Someone walks by with a caged bird. A falcon. hooded, majestic, twitchy. You try not to stare, but it stares at you, judging your robe, your posture, your life choices. There's a tiny stall selling ink and parchment. You spot a boy writing with a reed pen, copying verses so neatly it looks printed. You pause, watching. His fingers are stained with ink. His eyes don't leave the page. You wonder what it's like to write like that every day when paper is a luxury and pens are handmade. You wonder what he'd say if you showed him your phone. Probably scream. Now your stomach growls, loudly. You scan for something less spicy, less suspicious, less likely to haunt your intestines for days. You find a man selling samsa, meat-filled pastries, triangular, flaky. You gesture, he nods, and you trade. Nothing. Because again, you have no money. He frowns, then shrugs and hands you one anyway. You've officially been adopted by the market's code of pity. You thank him with every polite gesture you can remember, then take a bite. It's hot. It's greasy. It's glorious. As the juices drip onto your robe, of course they mix with the chili on your lips and the oud on your wrists, creating a scent profile that could only be described as confused time traveler dipped in curry. You lick your fingers. A cat appears hoping for scraps. You toss it a bit of crust. It sniffs it, judges you silently, and leaves. Even the cats here have standards. You wander deeper into the crowd, full, now spiced sweating, and smelling like 5 different food groups. You think maybe, just maybe, you're starting to blend in. Then someone yells, not at you, but the crowd shifts. A procession is coming, and you're in the way. You hear the procession before you see it. The rhythmic thump of drums, the sharp piping of flutes, the layered thrum of footsteps advancing like a heartbeat. Then come the voices, cheers, chants, something between reverence and ruckus. The crowd parts like a school of fish. Instinctively, everyone shuffles to the sides of the narrow street. Except you. You stand there like a decorative post, clutching your sash mouth full of lukewarm pastry. Someone pulls your sleeve hard, and you stagger backward just in time as the procession rounds the corner. At the front, 2 boys in matching blue tunics tossing flower petals, though one is clearly more invested than the other. Behind them, a group of drummers' arms moving in mesmerizing mechanical precision. The beat thuds in your chest like you're part of it, though it also makes that spicy pastry feel like it's auditioning for a return performance. Then comes a man on horseback, regal in his posture robes, embroidered with gold thread so intricate they might be whispering state secrets. He isn't a caliph, too modest a parade, but he's clearly someone. A judge, a scholar, a minor governor. Historians still debate how much day-to-day visibility these figures had. Some say they walked the markets often. Others argue their appearances were curated to project power and humility in equal parts. This guy, he's nailing both. His beard is geometrically magnificent. His turban looks like it was folded by celestial engineers. He scans the crowd slowly, and your breath catches when his eyes land on you for half a second too long. You nod. He doesn't nod back. The horse does. Possibly in mockery. Trailing him are attendants, scribes, and an absurdly large parasol bearer, a young man holding a shade so wide it could qualify as an architectural feature. There's also a falconer, because apparently that's a flex. The bird twitches on its leather perch feathers, rippling in the dry heat. The street, for all its bustle, has gone reverently quiet. You feel yourself shrink into your robe, which is now stained, wrinkled, and very obviously not tailored for official events. A child steps on your foot. You wince. No one notices. You're part of the crowd now, no longer a person, but a silhouette in the background of someone else's grandeur. Then, like a tide receding, the parade moves on. The drums fade. The flutes vanish. The scent of rosewater lingers in the air like a memory. And just like that, the market returns to normal. Sort of. People pick up conversations mid-sentence. The melon vendor resumes arguing with a customer over ripeness. A boy starts juggling walnuts inspired by the earlier knife show, but significantly safer. You look around dizzy. That was the closest you've come today to something resembling organized ritual. And it wasn't even for you. A man next to you chuckles. Never seen the Qadi before he asks in a dialect you only barely follow. You nod, awkwardly. He offers a fig. You accept. It's warm, overripe, and somehow exactly what you need. The Qadi, you now realize, was the man on horseback, a judge in both legal and religious matters. In the medieval Islamic world, Qadis held immense authority. They interpreted Sharia-resolved disputes and presided over courts that could address anything from theft to divorce to water rights. Depending on the city, they were appointed by caliphs, sultans, or even influential scholars. Historians still argue whether Qadis had more real power or symbolic clout. What's clear is that their public presence was part of how law and social order stayed visible in the daily rhythm of life. When they showed up, people acted right. Even the guy who had been yelling about lentils earlier is now speaking in hushed tones. You keep chewing your fig and nodding at nothing, trying to look thoughtful. People around you are still buzzing with commentary. One man insists the Qadi's horse had dyed hooves. Another swears he saw a jeweled sword at his side. You just remember the parasol. Honestly, you're still not over the parasol. You edge away from the crowd and into a quieter alley. The walls here are closer casting shade. There's a subtle shift in smell, less spice, more stone and sun-baked dust. You press your back to a wall and exhale. This city is loud. Not just in sound, but in presence. Every corner is charged with purpose, spoken or silent. Everyone seems to know the dance but you. Your moment of peace lasts 4 seconds. A man bursts from a nearby door shouting over his shoulder. Someone inside shouts back. It's not a fight, it's a debate. Maybe. Medieval Islamic cities were famous for their culture of discourse. Coffee houses hadn't been invented yet, but tea circles, marketplaces, and even bathhouses served as hotbeds for philosophical argument. They could go from Plato to trade taxes in a heartbeat. The man looks at you. You, he says, as if you've been waiting all day for your cue. Do you think logic is a fit servant for faith or its rival? You blink. He takes this as engagement. You see, even the stranger hesitates, because the Greeks were not fools. But revelation is higher. He whirls back inside, still arguing. You slowly shuffle away, clutching your fig pit like a relic. At the end of the alley, a quiet courtyard offers momentary escape. A fountain gurgles in the center pigeons, cooing around it. You sit on the stone rim, letting your robe breathe your ears, rest, and your brain catch up. A boy draws lines in the dust with a stick. He's sketching something that looks like stars, or maybe just geometric patterns. You remember that Islamic architecture often emphasized symmetry and pattern over figures partly out of religious concerns, but also as an aesthetic rooted in the infinite. You wonder if this kid knows he's casually doodling cosmic metaphors. A woman passes with a basket of bread. She sees you, frowns, and tosses a small round loaf into your lap. You say thanks. She's already gone. You nibble the edge. It's dry, crusty, and somehow tastes like effort and community. In this moment you feel briefly anchored. Not comfortable, but real. You're not just a tourist now. You're part of the background noise. The market is already forgetting you, and in its own odd way, that's a compliment. Then a bell rings somewhere. Not a church bell. Those are across the Mediterranean. This one is a town bell signaling something. A change. A moment. You don't know what, but you stand anyway, because you've learned one thing today: when the city moves, you move with it. You follow the wave, the subtle ripple of shifting feet and half-curious glances as people adjust their direction in response to that bell. It wasn't a warning. Clearly, no one's running, but it wasn't casual either. You're learning that in this city, every sound has layers. Drums, prayers, bells, gossip, it's all communication, all choreography. You drift with the current down a sloping street that opens into another courtyard. And there it is, the hammam. At first glance, it looks modest, just another squat domed building with a plain wooden door. But don't be fooled. This is a temple of steam and sweat, and you dear time-traveling viewer are about to bathe in public. Sort of. Welcome to the medieval Islamic bathhouse. Spoiler, you're not going to be good at this. Hammams were the backbone of urban hygiene. While much of medieval Europe was still suspicious of water Islamic cities, prized cleanliness ritual, physical spiritual. Hammams were everywhere social centers, grooming spots, and sometimes even matchmaking hubs. Historians still debate how often the average person bathed, but here once a week was common. Fridays were big. Today, let's call it Thursday. You're early. Lucky you. You step inside and are immediately greeted by damp warmth and the earthy scent of heated stone. A man at the entrance sizes you up with a glance that says, "You have no idea what you're doing." He's correct. He points to a low bench, and you sit. This is the maslak, the changing room. A place of modesty, but also unspoken judgment. You watch others disrobe, not completely mind you. In the Islamic world, even bathhouses maintained a level of decorum. Loincloths are worn. You fumble with your robe, trying to copy what others are doing. It's not graceful. You wrap yourself in a thin towel someone tosses your way, and now you're a damp burrito of confusion. The floor is slick. The air is getting thicker. A man gestures toward a narrow hallway leading to steam you can almost chew. You shuffle forward. The next chamber is the warm room, transitional, not too hot, not too cold. The walls are tiled in blue and green moisture clinging like tiny glass beads. You sit on a stone bench and try to look relaxed. You're not. Your skin is already glowing like it's been lightly sautéed. Two men nearby are deep in conversation. You catch snippets, something about irrigation disputes, and then something about the latest poetry reading at the mosque. In hammams, politics and poetics blend as naturally as steam and sweat. It's equal parts TED Talk and Turkish delight. You nod at one of them. He nods back. Then goes back to debating whether a verse was misattributed to Al-Mutanabi, or some lesser poet with delusions of grandeur. You consider joining the discussion, then remember, you've read exactly 0 poems in Arabic. You move to the hot room. Now we're in the main event. The air is thick enough to slow time. Your pores scream. The domed ceiling drips softly, condensation falling in rhythmic plinks onto stone tiles. Small glass openings in the dome let in shafts of filtered light. It's like being in a celestial crock-pot. You sit, you sweat. Your towel clings to you like regret. A burly man appears. He carries a bucket, a rough mitt, and an expression that says, "We're going to exfoliate you so hard you'll meet last week's sins." This is the telek, a professional bathhouse attendant. You were hoping to observe, maybe splash a bit. Nope, you're getting the full treatment. He pours hot water over you, startling, scalding, oddly refreshing. Then comes the scrubbing mitt. It's made from goat hair or something equally abrasive. He starts at your shoulders and works downward. You are now a cheese grater's emotional support human. You wince, yelp, and maybe squeak a little. The telak grunts unimpressed. He mutters something about city soft skins. You try to pretend it's a compliment. Then he slaps your back. Not gently. You're clean and stunned. Next, he shampoos your hair with something that smells like olive oil and crushed mint leaves. Your scalp tingles. You consider tipping him. Then, remember again, you have no money. You mumble thanks in the best Arabic accent you can manage. He nods. Maybe you're redeemed. Maybe not. You're pointed toward a marble basin. Time to rinse. You scoop water over yourself, trying to look like you know what you're doing. The water is warm, the steam like a lullaby now. For a moment you feel suspended. No time, no market. Just breathstone and heat. Someone nearby starts singing low melodic, almost a hum. The acoustics catch it and spin it around the dome. You close your eyes. It's hypnotic. This might be the first moment of genuine peace you've had since arriving. You stay there a long time, not talking, not thinking, just melting into medieval moisture. Eventually, someone taps your shoulder. Back to the changing room. You towel off. Your skin feels unfamiliar, like a layer's been filed off because it has. You slip into your damp robe, which now smells vaguely of basil and defeat. A boy brings you a cup of herbal tea, licorice root maybe. Sweet and earthy. You sip. You exhale. The hammam isn't just a bathhouse. It's a reset button. A place where classes blur tempers cool, and bodies remember they're part of something ancient and shared. Even in modern cities, echoes of this rhythm remain. Historians still argue how gender was handled in these spaces, whether women had equal access or separate facilities, and how times of day were split. The records vary. But one thing is clear, everybody valued the bath. You stumble back into the sunlit street like a peeled fruit. Everything feels louder now, sharper. Your robe flutters a little in the dry breeze. Someone passes you and pauses. You look steamed, they say with a grin. You laugh. First time today. Maybe you are adapting. Then your stomach growls again, because of course it does. Your freshly exfoliated skin is glowing. Your hair feels suspiciously floaty, and your feet are squeaky against the warm dust of the street. You're clean, miraculously clean, but now deeply, profoundly hungry. Fortunately, you've emerged right next to something remarkable, a medieval Islamic street food vendor. Yes, those existed, and yes, you're about to experience them. Your stomach, which has been mostly on a diet of stress and figs, perks up like a hopeful meerkat. The scent hits you first. Cinnamon, sizzling lamb smoke, curling around cardamom and onion. Your mouth does that pre-saliva thing it does right before joy. A long line of locals curls toward the stall like a snake of anticipation. You queue up. You've learned by now not to stand in the middle of things. In front of the vendor's stand, dough is stretched and slapped, stuffed, folded, then tossed onto a flat griddle. Someone else tends to skewers juicy chunks of meat turning slowly over charcoal, sizzling softly, juice dripping into the coals and sending up bursts of scented steam. A man ahead of you is handed a warm, golden triangle of something stuffed with minced meat and lentils. You blink. It's basically a medieval samosa. You almost cry. You inch forward, hopeful, trying to look like someone who belongs here. When you reach the front, the cook eyes you with the same expression someone might give a suspicious cat near a butter dish. Still, he grunts, and you point carefully at what you want, one of those meat-filled triangles. Maybe a date-stuffed pastry, too. He hands them over in waxy parchment leaves, and you nod gratefully. Once again, you have no currency, but this time, a kind-faced old woman behind you mumbles something and places a coin down on your behalf. You stammer a thank you. She waves you off. "Eat," she says. You look like a ghost made of laundry. You sit on a low step nearby and dig in. The first bite is transcendent savory, gently spiced with hints of clove and sumac. The crust flakes apart just enough to keep things interesting. You could weep into this meal. As you eat, you observe the flow of the midday food scene. This isn't just fast food, it's social ritual. Merchants compare notes on imports. Students argue over Quranic interpretation while chewing flatbread. A tailor explains the latest Mongol rumors with the breathless flair of someone who wants you to know he's connected. You notice a few differences from your modern food truck daydreams. For one, there's no seating. People eat standing, sitting on steps, crouched against walls. Plates are often communal. Hygiene standards. Surprisingly advanced for the time. Water jugs and hand-washing bowls sit nearby. Cleanliness is part of religious and cultural routine, and the food. It's regional fusion before fusion was a word. There are Persian rice dishes, Levantine herbs, Indian spice profiles. The medieval Islamic world was a culinary crossroads, and you're standing right in the center of its delicious Venn diagram. Historians still argue about how many spices the average person had access to. Were cinnamon and saffron common or reserved for the wealthy? Did traders keep the best for export? But here, in this moment, you're tasting what feels like a little bit of everything. Midway through your date pastry, soft, sticky, and clearly more sugar than fruit, you hear a raised voice. Two vendors are arguing nearby. Something about a missing jar of preserved lemons. The exchange is heated but theatrical. You recognize this now as part of the market's language volume equals legitimacy. You chew slowly, appreciating the drama like it's street theater. A stray cat slinks by. You offer it a pastry crumb. It sniffs, unimpressed. The standards here are high, even among felines. After a few minutes, you decide to walk while you digest. The streets are shifting again that midday. Hum, dipping, as people start drifting toward quieter corners. Some go toward the mosque. Others gather under shaded awnings. You follow the smell of roasting coffee. You find it in a corner shop tucked under a vine-covered awning, where the scent is deep and bitter and strangely seductive. Coffee, as we know it, was still rising in popularity in the medieval Islamic world, particularly in Yemen, where kahwa was used by Sufi mystics to stay alert during nighttime devotions. You're ahead of the widespread Ottoman cafe scene, but here and now coffee is still known and revered. A man in the shop grinds beans with a stone mill then boils them in a tiny brass vessel over a charcoal flame. He pours the dark liquid into tiny ceramic cups. No sugar, no milk, just straight bean energy. You manage to barter with a smile and a nod. A cup is passed to you. It's about 2 sips worth, dense and black and full of roasted mystery. You taste. It punches you awake. You love it. The man behind the coffee pot smiles. Yemeni, he says, tapping the pot. Good for the mind. Bad for sleep. You laugh. You probably shouldn't drink more. But you do, with food in your stomach and caffeine whispering dark secrets into your bloodstream. You wander again. You pass a spice cellar with mountains of saffron turmeric and dried rose petals piled like powdery dunes. A child is helping his father grind cumin with a mortar bigger than his head. Further along, you glimpse a wall of glass bottles, olive oil vinegar, rosewater fig syrup. A man in a tall hat is stirring something bubbling over a clay stove, perhaps a batch of molasses sweets or medicinal syrup. It's hard to tell where cuisine ends and pharmacology begins in this world. And, oh, yes, you haven't had water since the hammam. You spot a sakha, a water carrier walking by with a goatskin bag slung over his shoulder and a copper cup swinging from a rope. He looks at you, sighs like this is the 50th clueless visitor today, and offers the cup. You drink. It's cool, slightly earthy, but refreshing. You give a grateful nod. He nods back with a shrug that says, "It's literally my job." Water carriers were licensed workers in medieval cities, crucial to the rhythm of daily life. Before public plumbing, these men ensured homes and shops got water, sometimes even paid by charities, to serve the poor and the thirsty. Unsung hydration heroes. You lean against a doorway, full now. Clean. Fed. Caffeinated. Mildly embarrassed. But for the first time, not actively uncomfortable. You still wouldn't survive a week here, let's be honest. But maybe you'd make it to tomorrow. There's a sluggishness now that isn't quite sleepiness, but close. That post-meal, post-hammam haze. Your body has stopped screaming and now it's just gently mumbling. You find yourself drifting, walking, without planning, drawn more by shadows and shade than direction. You wander into a quieter neighborhood. The houses are built close together, walls rising in textured, sun-baked layers. Wooden mashrabia windows lean over the narrow alleys like they're whispering secrets to each other. It's quieter here, but the silence is never full. A soft broom somewhere. A child humming to herself as she plays with a hoop and stick. The faint flap of laundry above you like a pigeon's slow applause. You're in a residential quarter now where daily life hums behind modest doors. These neighborhoods are designed with both community and privacy in mind. Labyrinthine alleys that tangle gently, offering cool shade and social proximity. And right now, you're getting the local version of a sidewalk stroll. A man passes you carrying a tray with 6 brass cups of tea. Not for sale, he's just delivering them to neighbors. You glance at a doorway and catch sight of a courtyard beyond lush with a fig tree, a small fountain, and 3 kids chasing each other around a startled chicken. This is what medieval homes are built around the dar, or central courtyard. Most homes are inward-facing, no big display windows, no front lawns. Privacy was prized especially for women, so public-facing architecture kept things discreet. But inside, lush, vibrant, alive. You peek a little longer than is polite, then move on before you get scolded. A rooster eyes you with suspicion. fair. Eventually, your feet lead you toward a small open structure, a maktab or informal school. You hover near the edge. There's no classroom bell, just a teacher bearded, weary but calm reading aloud from a long sheet of parchment. Around him, children are reciting in sing-song unison, their voices overlapping in that chaotic harmony unique to group learning. They're not just memorizing the Quran, though that's certainly part of it. There are arithmetic problems scratched into wooden tablets. One child recites a line of poetry, stumbles, blushes. The teacher corrects him gently. Another girl rattles off a list of dates, caliphate succession, possibly. Or a very intense birthday party guest list. You're watching the roots of an educational system more robust than you'd expect. The medieval Islamic world placed high value on knowledge, religious and secular. Even the poorest neighborhoods often pooled funds to support a teacher. Boys and girls both attended these early schools, though scholars still argue about how consistent or widespread female education really was. The sources are murky. Some regions embraced it, others resisted. Your eyes drift to a shelf of ink pots and sharpened reed pens. You remember trying to write with a quill once at a Renaissance fair and ending up with blotted fingers and an illegible grocery list. You quietly back away before someone asks you to demonstrate your calligraphy. You keep walking and notice something odd: the houses smell. Good. Not just food good, but herbal, woody clean good. That's because in this world, household chores are a full-time war against dust flies and bad smells, and the locals are armed with herbs, smoke, and vinegar. You pass a woman sprinkling rose water on a clay floor to keep it cool and fragrant. Another burns a bit of sandalwood in a small brazier near her doorway. It's part fumigation, part spiritual practice. You sneeze politely and move on. Laundry hangs between balconies in long ropes of linen tunics, and what appears to be a truly unfortunate pair of bloomers. Someone upstairs pours a bucket of gray water into a small gutter that runs along the edge of the alley. It flows slowly toward a brick-lined channel that disappears into a larger drainage system. Yes, they had plumbing of a sort, drainage wells, water carriers. Not the flush-and-forget luxury you're used to, but effective enough to prevent cholera from throwing house parties. Though let's be real, you still wouldn't drink the tap water. You spot a girl squatting near a doorway, scrubbing a copper pot with crushed tamarind. No soap, too expensive, too rare. Instead, medieval cleaning relied on clever natural substitutes: ashes for scouring, vinegar for stain removal, and apparently tamarind for whatever that pot did wrong in a past life. She looks up and gives you the kind of deadpan look only an overworked 10-year-old can deliver. You nod respectfully. She nods back. Solidarity. As you continue, the afternoon heat shifts. Shadows stretch. The calls of merchants start to fade. You pass a woman sweeping dust from her stoop with a broom made of palm fronds. Every movement feels ritualistic. She's done this 1,000 times. The broom is barely holding together, but she sweeps like it owes her money. Nearby, a man hangs tiny brass bells near his window. They're not for sound, they're meant to ward off the evil eye. Superstition and belief dance together here in everyday life. A piece of blue glass, an amulet, a verse from the Quran inked on parchment and tucked into a child's sleeve. These are the quiet protections people layer over their homes. And now you're beginning to see how this place, despite its sensory overload, functions with rhythm. The world behind these alleyways isn't glamorous, but it's sturdy, held together with tradition, hospitality, prayer, and a good deal of sweeping. As the sun begins to soften, Golden light washes over the stone walls. A boy chases after a goat with a stick. The goat wins. A cat jumps from a rooftop, lands silently, and vanishes like a magician late for dinner. You finally pause under a shady overhang, sitting on a cool step. Nearby, a woman is singing to her baby in a lilting voice, the lullaby threading through the air like perfume. You feel the sleep tug at you again. Not quite enough to knock you out, but enough to slow your pulse. You yawn. One of those deep yawns that makes your eyes water a little. A soft voice beside you. You should rest before the evening. You turn. A man in simple robes offers you a folded mat. Not a bed, but better than the ground. You take it. The call to prayer will come soon. People will wake up again. Move. Talk. Eat. But for now, in this sliver of quiet between daytime toil and evening revival, you rest. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally starting to belong. You wake to a sky dipped in honey and ink, the sun melting behind low rooftops in slow motion. The world is exhaling. The alley you'd drifted off in now hums with soft, deliberate energy, people reappearing like shadows stretching back into their forms. It's time for Maghrib, the sunset prayer, and you can feel it in the air before you hear it. From above, the muezzin's voice glides out into the golden twilight, winding through streets and windows like silk thread. The call is both lullaby and command familiar, rhythmic, unhurried. People pause. Conversations settle. A boy tosses aside his ball. Even the cat from earlier sits very still, as if it too is listening. You stand unsure. The mat beneath you still warm from your impromptu nap. Around you, people begin making their way toward the mosque, not in a mad rush, but with the kind of pace that suggests this happens every day because it does. This isn't obligation, it's rhythm. Someone taps your shoulder. An older man, his beard peppered with white, holds out a small basin of water. You blink. He gestures to your hands and face. Wudu, ritual, ablution. You follow his lead, mimicking the gestures, rinsing your hands, mouth, nose, face, arms. It's not a bath, but a kind of spiritual refresh. You mess up the elbow part. He corrects you, patient. Intent matters. He says eyes kind. Even if your technique doesn't. You laugh softly. You're not Muslim, but no one seems to mind your respectful curiosity. This is a communal act, not a private club. You trail behind him to the mosque. It's not massive or ostentatious, just a square building with a shaded courtyard and open archways that catch the last breath of sun. The floor inside is cool beneath your feet. Rows form. The imam begins. Everyone bows, prostrates, rises. A human wave of synchronized movement. You stay back, observing a respectful echo, and you realize this isn't just religion. It's urban choreography. The call to prayer slices the day into digestible pieces. 5 moments of rebalancing, not just with God, but with the world. It's structure in a world with no calendars on the wall and no watches on wrists. Historians still argue whether daily prayer kept productivity high or interrupted it, but you can feel the emotional effect, a collective pause. You've spent most of your modern life scrolling through chaos, but here people have 5 standing dates with silence. After the final salam, the mosque empties quickly. People head home. The smell of food returns more intense now, braided with wood smoke and meat. It's time for dinner, and the city knows it. You follow the stream back into the residential lanes. Lamps flicker to life oil in glass soft and golden. No blue light here. No LEDs to flatten the evening. Everything glows. You're beckoned into a home. That's right, invited, just like that. A neighbor you must have passed earlier gestures for you to join their meal. In this world, hospitality isn't a favor, it's an expected virtue. To feed a stranger is to polish your soul. The interior is simple woven rugs. Low cushions, a spread of food laid out on a round tray in the center. There's no furniture, as you know it, just elegant functionality. You sit cross-legged like everyone else, awkward at first, but no one mocks you. The meal. A sensory love letter. Spiced rice with lamb shanks so tender they practically apologize as they fall apart. Yogurt with cucumber and mint. Roasted eggplant drizzled in pomegranate syrup. Fresh bread, flat, warm, slightly smoky from the clay oven. Everyone eats with their right hand, neatly using thumb and fingers to pinch and scoop. You try. It's a mess. A small boy giggles and shows you how to fold the bread just right. You thank him with a piece of dried apricot. Conversation flows like water down a gentle slope. Topics skip from trade gossip to a new book of poetry someone heard in the market. An elderly woman recites a line from Al-Mutanabi, and everyone nods in appreciation. You have no idea what it meant, but the mood is reverent. In this world, literacy is currency, and poetry is sport. Even common people often memorize lines, drop quotes, engage in friendly verse battles. It's like Shakespeare night, but with fewer ruffled collars and more olives. Someone passes around a bowl of olives so briny they could fix your posture. Then come honey-soaked sweets, baklava-like bites. Sesame candy fruit slices chilled with crushed snow from the mountains. You're stunned. This is not peasant food. This is a royal banquet, only it's not. It's just Tuesday. You excuse yourself after the meal, trying to bow correctly, fumbling over thanks in a dozen confused syllables. Your hosts laugh warmly, not at you, but at your charm. A woman presses a fig into your hand. For later, she says, as if you haven't already eaten enough to weigh down a trebuchet. Outside, the evening is in full bloom. Music rises faintly from another courtyard, an ode, playing something slow and minor. You lean against a wall and listen the notes curling around your brain like a lullaby. Then you hear a commotion somewhere close. Not dangerous, but definitely dramatic. You follow the noise because of course you do, and arrive at a small public square lit by hanging lamps. A storyteller, or hakawati, stands in the middle, holding a curved cane like a scepter. Around him, people sit on mats and stools, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. He's telling a tale from 1001 Nights, the kind with genies flying carpets and unfortunate princes who can't stop touching cursed objects. The crowd is rapt. He modulates his voice, pantomimes, spins, and paces. Kids laugh. Adults murmur. You catch only fragments, but the magic cuts through the language gap. It's live Netflix medieval edition. Storytelling wasn't just entertainment. It was oral archive, cultural glue, verbal acrobatics. Some hakawatis were revered like celebrities, their words preserved, memorized, passed down. Historians still debate which tales in the famous collections were truly original or later additions. But in moments like this, does it matter? You watch the story unfold, your fig forgotten in your hand. The smell of oil lamps, the flicker of flame, the low murmur of human attention. It's all strangely intimate. The tale ends in a flourish. The storyteller bows, coins clink into a shallow bowl. The crowd disperses slowly, drunk on narrative. A boy reenacts a sword fight with a stick. An old man says he told it better than last week. You walk away in silence, the night curling tighter around your shoulders. There's a fullness to the city now, a heartbeat you can almost match. It's no longer an alien world. You still don't belong, but maybe you're beginning to understand. The night thickens around you like warm honey, heavy and sweet, as the city settles into a quieter rhythm. The markets have shuttered, and the alleys are softer. The chatter replaced by gentle murmurs and the occasional bark of a dog. But sleep, not quite yet. There's a particular magic to the medieval Islamic city after dark, something alive in the shadows waiting to unfold. You find yourself drawn to the hammam once more, that old friend of sweat and steam. It's quieter now, but the ritual remains unchanged. The bathhouses weren't just about cleanliness, they were social theaters. Here, you'd find the city's pulse traders, scholars, craftsmen, all mixing beneath the warm vapors. You step inside, and the heat hugs you like an old blanket. The bathhouse is a mosaic of voices and scents, eucalyptus, rosewater, and the faintest hint of oud incense. Steam rises in lazy spirals from the hot pools. You watch men and women in separate sections, of course, chatting, scrubbing, massaging, and gossiping. It's a communal reset button, a place where social barriers melt alongside dirt and sweat. You remember that medieval doctors often prescribed regular hammam visits as health cures, believing sweat expelled toxins. Of course, historians still argue whether this was genuine medical insight or just smart marketing by bathhouse owners. Either way, you can't deny the charm of a good soak. Nearby, a boy lathers himself with black soap made from olive oil and ash, scrubbing away the day's grime with a rough mitt. You try to imagine spending your entire day in woolen robes and layered clothing in this heat, then bathing to feel human again. It sounds exhausting and somehow relaxing all at once. Emerging from the steam, your skin tingles, refreshed, but sticky with lingering oils. You dry off on a rough linen towel and step out to the cool night air. The contrast stings pleasantly. As you wander back into the city streets, the night market is awakening small lanterns bobbing on wooden carts, vendors shouting softly to potential customers. Fresh dates glisten under candlelight, and stacks of fragrant spices promise adventures for your taste buds tomorrow. There's a quiet bargaining going on, but it's gentle, respectful. You spot a street performer juggling flaming torches, his silhouette flickering like a mirage against the ancient stone walls. Children cluster around eyes wide. Someone tosses a coin and the juggler bows theatrically. You stroll further past a man setting up a low table covered in chessboards, carved from bone and ebony. Chess, invented in this world's neighboring lands, has become a popular pastime. You stop, watch a game in progress, an intense battle of minds played with quiet concentration. Historians still debate how deeply chess influenced medieval Islamic strategy and culture, but watching it now, you get the appeal. It's a dance of patience and cunning. Suddenly, a faint melody catches your ear. You follow the notes to a small, dimly lit courtyard where a woman plays the qanun, a stringed instrument that sounds like a harp kissed by the wind. Her fingers move expertly, weaving a hypnotic tapestry of sound. People sit cross-legged, eyes closed, letting the music cradle them. You find an empty spot and settle down, letting the notes wash over you. music in this world isn't background noise. It's a spiritual journey, an emotional conversation. Some feared it could be a distraction from devotion, but many embraced it as a way to reach the divine. The debate rages quietly in history books, but here and now the melody feels timeless. As the song fades, you glance up to see the stars blinking through gaps in the rooftops. No city lights to drown them out, just the soft glow of the moon and distant lamps. You breathe deeply, the cool night air filling your lungs. Walking back toward your temporary resting place, you pass a group of men sharing stories under a fig tree, their voices low but animated. One tells a tale of a clever merchant who outwitted bandits with nothing but a jar of honey and a prayer. Another argues about the best routes along the Silk Road, debating caravan dangers and trade winds. You realize this city never truly sleeps. It just shifts gears. The hustle of daytime gives way to the intimacy of night, where stories, music, and soft laughter hold court. You pause, letting the sounds and scents sink in. You're tired, yes, but also somehow part of this rhythm now. The medieval Islamic world isn't just a dusty museum piece. It's a living, breathing community. And maybe, just maybe, you'd survive another day here. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The morning comes soft and early, slipping over the rooftops like warm honey poured gently into a cup. You're awake before the city fully stirs, which gives you a rare chance to catch the world in a delicate, in-between moment. The air smells of fresh bread baking and the sharp tang of brewing coffee, or rather a strong cardamom-spiced drink that locals favor close but not quite the espresso you're used to. This early hour is when the city's true heartbeat reveals itself. Merchants arrive, pulling carts creaking with woven baskets of figs, dates, and fragrant spices. The bazaars open like flowers to the sun, with stalls springing to life one by one. Here, you experience the chaotic charm of the souk, a marketplace as old as time itself. The scent of cumin, cinnamon, and saffron drifts in the air, weaving into a fragrant tapestry that lingers on your clothes long after you leave. Vendors shout prices in melodic bursts, no shouting matches, but a polite, rhythmic negotiation that's almost musical. A spice merchant invites you to taste some sumac, its tartness surprising and fresh, a little like lemons gone rogue. You watch a man expertly wrap a bundle of goods in brown paper, tying it with thin strips of palm fiber. There's an art to packaging. It seems as deliberate as the goods themselves. You realize this place is less about the transaction and more about the ritual of exchange, a social dance between buyer and seller. Suddenly, your attention is snagged by a peculiar sight. A small group clustered around a snake charmer, or so it seems. Except instead of a snake, it's a mongoose, an animal prized for its snake-fighting prowess. The mongoose bobs and weaves, clearly unimpressed by the flutes and crowd. You chuckle softly. It's like watching a cat tolerate a laser pointer. The snake charmer grins, tipping his turban. You learn that mongooses were common pets and pest controllers famously fearless in the face of venomous snakes. Historians still argue whether their widespread use truly reduced snakebite incidents, or if it was more a charming legend with practical benefits. You move on, weaving through narrow alleys where artisans hammer copper into pots, dye cloth in vats of indigo, and carve intricate woodwork. The clatter and clang create a rhythm of craftsmanship, a reminder that behind the silk and spices lies a world of skilled hands. Nearby, you notice an old man meticulously grinding pigments to paint calligraphy. His hands tremble slightly, but his strokes remain steady. Calligraphy, you remember, is not just writing here, it's a sacred art, a visual expression of divine beauty. People collect verses from the Quran elegantly penned on parchment or ceramics, decorating homes and mosques alike. In a small tea shop, a group of men sip thick, sweet tea, flavored with rose petals and mint. You sit down, accepting a steaming cup. The tea tastes like a garden captured in liquid form. You join their conversation, which meanders from poetry to politics, the ebb and flow of empire, and the latest gossip from the far-off city of Baghdad. You learn that this city, while bustling and vibrant, is part of a vast network, the Islamic world at its peak, spanning continents. Ideas, goods, and people flow along routes like the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean trade, connecting you to distant lands you can barely imagine. Some scholars debate how interconnected medieval Islamic cities truly were, but the evidence of diverse goods and ideas speaks volumes. As the sun climbs higher, the marketplace becomes a lively mosaic of sounds, smells, and colors, a sensory feast that both excites and overwhelms. You feel a bit like a character in a richly illustrated manuscript, caught between vibrant borders and swirling stories. You pause to buy a small ceramic jug painted with cobalt blue patterns. The merchant wraps it carefully and wishes you safe travels, his eyes twinkling with unspoken tales. Walking back toward the quieter alleys, jug in hand, you realize you've just dipped your toes into the vast ocean of daily life here. The medieval Islamic world is far from the dusty stereotype you imagined. It's alive, complex, and deeply human. You shake your head with a small smile. If you survived this morning, maybe you can survive another day. But don't get cocky. By mid-afternoon, the sun is a relentless overseer, turning stone and earth into slow ovens. You trudge along shaded streets where the occasional breeze feels like a whispered promise of relief. The heat presses down, but the city adapts, a dance of shadows, water, and cool retreats that keeps life moving. You duck into a small cafe, a humble refuge with a courtyard fountain burbling in the center. The gentle splash of water is almost hypnotic, a stark contrast to the simmering streets outside. You order a glass of jalab, a sweet, fragrant drink made from date molasses, rose water, and pine nuts, perfect for cooling the insides. As you sip, you watch the city's artisans at work nearby. A man blows delicate glass vessels, his breath shaping molten sand into shimmering forms. Another dyes leather in a vat of rich indigo, the color so deep it seems to swallow light. You think about how each craft tells a story, passing skills through generations. Speaking of stories, you overhear a lively debate at a neighboring table, which is the superior poetic form, the qasida or the ghazal. The men argue passionately, quoting verses with dramatic flair. Poetry here isn't just art. It's an intellectual sport, a way to display wit, knowledge, and emotional depth. You remember how poetry was essential in court culture, often used to praise rulers or subtly critique them. Historians still argue about how freely poets could express dissent, but it's clear their words held power. Your gaze drifts to a nearby group playing a game of backgammon, the dice clicking against carved wooden boards. The game's origins are ancient, and it's a popular pastime, balancing luck and strategy. Watching the players' focused faces, you realize it's more than a game. It's social currency. Suddenly, a commotion erupts outside. You step out to find a bustling caravan, arriving camels laden with goods from distant lands, silks, spices, rare fruits. The traders unload with practiced efficiency. You're struck by the sheer scale of trade connecting this city to places as far as China and Africa. The air buzzes with languages mingling Arabic, Persian, Turkic dialects, and more. It's a melting pot, a crossroads of culture and commerce. You think about how knowledge traveled along these routes, to mathematics, medicine, astronomy ideas that would later shape the modern world. A scholar nearby notices your interest and explains how libraries in this era were treasure troves, sometimes rivaling the size of entire universities. They housed manuscripts copied meticulously by hand-preserving ancient Greek, Indian, and Persian wisdom. As evening approaches, you head to the city's main mosque courtyard, where men gather to discuss philosophy and theology. The debates are lively, blending faith and reason in ways that challenge your modern assumptions. You're struck by the city's blend of tradition and innovation, where ancient rituals coexist with groundbreaking science. Historians still debate how much the scientific advancements were influenced by earlier cultures. But here, the fusion feels natural. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows, you realize the day has unfolded, like a richly embroidered tapestry complex, vibrant and full of life. The medieval Islamic city isn't just surviving, it's thriving against all odds. You feel a quiet respect for the people who called this place home, navigating its challenges with grace and grit. You're tired, but enlightened, your imagination richer for the journey. And tomorrow, well, who knows what awaits? As twilight deepens, the city takes on a different character, less frantic, more reflective. You wander through narrow lanes where lanterns flicker like fireflies caught in glass. The air cools, and the aroma of spices mingles with the distant scent of jasmine from courtyard gardens. This is the time when scholars and poets step out from their studies to share ideas under the stars. You find yourself drawn to a modest madrasa, where students gather for evening lessons. The walls are lined with scrolls and manuscripts, their faded ink, a testament to centuries of knowledge. The teacher, an elderly man with a kind but serious face, reads aloud from a text on astronomy, explaining the movements of planets and stars with surprising clarity. You listen, captivated by the blend of science and philosophy. Astronomy was more than stargazing here. It was essential for prayer time's navigation and understanding the cosmos. Historians still argue how much medieval Islamic astronomers contributed to later European discoveries, but their meticulous observations are undeniable. Nearby, a young woman sketches geometric patterns, the foundation of Islamic art. Her steady hand traces intricate shapes that repeat endlessly, a visual metaphor for infinity and divine order. You watch the delicate symmetry, marveling at how math and spirituality merge in these designs. Suddenly, laughter bubbles from a nearby tea house. You join the circle of storytellers sharing Akbar tales of heroes, saints, and everyday miracles. These stories are more than entertainment. They're moral guides, community glue, and a way to preserve history when few could read or write. One story tells of a clever woman who outwits a greedy tax collector using nothing but her wit and a borrowed goat. You chuckle, realizing that medieval Islamic cities had their share of everyday drama and humor, just like today. Humor was valued, though it had to walk the line of respect and propriety, a balance that still sparks debate among historians. As the night deepens, you step outside to a rooftop, where the city sprawls beneath a canopy of stars. You can almost hear the whispers of generations past, their hopes and fears, woven into the stones and stories. The cool breeze carries the soft murmur of prayers from distant mosques, mingling with the occasional clatter of late-night commerce. life here never truly stops. It simply shifts rhythms. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of history settle gently around you. The medieval Islamic world wasn't a static, dusty relic. It was vibrant, intellectual, messy, and beautiful. And though you're just passing through, you carry a piece of its restless spirit with you. For now, the city sleeps, but you know tomorrow will bring new challenges, new wonders. You tuck that thought away like a treasured secret, ready to face whatever comes next. You wake with the dawn's first faint light filtering through lattice windows, casting delicate patterns on the floor. The city is still wrapped in quiet, the kind that feels heavy with potential, a breath held before the next act. You pull your cloak tight and step outside, greeted by the cool, crisp air of early morning. Today, you decide to explore beyond the familiar streets and markets. You find yourself at the city gates where caravans prepare to set off along dusty trade routes stretching across deserts and mountains. The sounds of camels shifting ropes creaking and merchants bargaining fill the air, a symphony of commerce and adventure. You watch as goods are loaded bales of silk from distant China sacks of spices from India, and pottery glazed with vibrant colors. You realize how interconnected this world truly is. Each item a story of journeys and cultures woven together. Historians still debate the exact routes and the extent of these networks, but the city's bustling gate tells its own tale. Nearby, a caravan leader gestures toward a rough map, etched on animal hide, plotting the journey ahead. The roads are perilous, fraught with sandstorms, bandits, and political unrest. But the promise of wealth and exotic goods keeps traders pressing forward. You overhear a conversation about the famed Silk Road, the legendary artery of commerce and culture. It wasn't just silk flowing through these paths, but ideas, technologies, and faiths, all mingling in a vibrant exchange that shaped the medieval world. You feel a thrill imagining yourself as part of this grand adventure, though you suspect your modern sensibilities might make the desert heat, scarce water, and uncertainty a bit overwhelming. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't last long without your smartphone. Turning away from the gates, you visit a nearby medical school where scholars study texts on anatomy, surgery, and pharmacology. The spirit of inquiry here is contagious. Students debate treatments, share discoveries, and challenge old dogmas. Medicine in the medieval Islamic world was surprisingly advanced, with hospitals offering care that sometimes rivaled today's standards. You recall the quirky fact that some doctors used music therapy, believing it could soothe both body and soul. Historians still argue how widespread or effective these treatments were, but it paints a picture of a society open to experimentation. In a quiet courtyard, you encounter a healer mixing herbs and minerals into balms and potions. The scents of rose mint and frankincense mingle in the air, calming your senses. You wonder about the countless lives touched by this blend of ancient wisdom and new science. As the sun climbs higher, you feel the pulse of the city once more, the rhythm of trade scholarship and daily life interwoven like the threads of a rich tapestry. You sense that to survive here, you'd need more than courage. You'd need curiosity, resilience, and a respect for the endless complexity around you. And as you step back into the streets, you realize that the medieval Islamic world wasn't just a place in history. It was a crossroads of humanity's greatest hopes and challenges. Tomorrow, your journey nears its end, but the story lingers like a soft, persistent melody. The day wanes, and with it, your time in this ancient city draws to a close. You wander one last time through the winding streets, letting the sights and sounds imprint on your senses a mosaic of colors, smells, and stories that feel both foreign and strangely familiar. You pause at a quiet corner where children play with spinning tops made of bone and wood, their laughter bright and unguarded. Nearby, an elderly storyteller weaves a tale of forgotten heroes and lost cities, his voice soft but compelling. The city hums with life, a complex blend of tradition and change. As you walk, you reflect on what it means to survive here, not just physically, but socially and mentally. The medieval Islamic world demanded adaptability, navigating strict social codes, unpredictable politics, and the challenges of everyday life. Yet it also offered community knowledge and beauty in unexpected places. You remember the hammams, the bustling markets, the scholarly debates under starry skies, the vibrant arts, and the fierce spirit of trade that connected distant lands. You think about the spices that tingled on your tongue, the music that stirred your soul, and the stories that opened windows into the human experience. Historians still argue about many aspects of this world, from the true extent of its scientific achievements to the nuances of its social structures. But what's undeniable is its vitality. It was a world full of contradictions and surprises of hardship and hope. As dusk deepens into night, you find a quiet rooftop where the city stretches before you like a sleeping giant. The call to prayer echoes softly, a reminder of the faith that shaped so much here, while the stars shimmer with the same ancient light that guided travelers and dreamers alike. You feel a deep calm settling in a gentle closing of the day's chapter. This journey, with all its textures and tales, has been more than a lesson. It's been a meditation on resilience, curiosity, and the timeless human quest to find meaning in the chaos. Now, as you prepare to leave this world behind, you carry its echoes with you, a soft whisper against the noise of modern life. And if you're honest, you know you wouldn't just survive here, you'd find a way to thrive too. Now, as the city's light fades and the night embraces you gently, let your mind soften and your breath slow. Imagine the warm glow of lanterns casting playful shadows across ancient stones, the distant murmur of water trickling in a quiet courtyard, the faint scent of spices drifting on a cool breeze. Let the rhythm of this world lull you not with the chaos of crowds or the clamor of markets, but with the steady heartbeat of life unfolding in its own time. Here, in the calm between moments, you find a place where stories settle softly, like dust, and history feels less like a weight and more like a quiet companion. Breathe in the peace of this timeless city. Feel the coolness of night air brushing your skin. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a gentle stream carried by currents you don't need to control. You've traveled far tonight, walked paths worn by countless feet before you, and glimpsed lives shaped by dreams and struggles, both distant and near. Now it's time to rest. Sleep deep, knowing you've touched a world rich with life, wisdom, and heart. And when you wake, carry that calm with you. Good night.